A special
rock, sadly, this week in memory of Nirvana leader Kurt Cobain, who was found dead on Friday morning in a house he owned in Seattle, a suicide at the age of 27. On Saturday morning, we spoke to singer Courtney Love, Cobain's wife and the mother of their baby daughter, Frances. Love said that Cobain, who suffered from a chronic and painful gastric disorder, which had driven him to take drugs in the past, had started taking heroin and other drugs about 8 or 9 days after they returned home last month from Rome, where Cobain had been hospitalized in a coma after drinking alcohol on top of a prescription sedative. Famously ambivalent about rock stardom and the record business in general, Cobain, Love said, had grown weary of career pressures and was unhappy with Nirvana. Love quotes him as saying, "I hate it, I can't play with them anymore." Says Love, quote, "The only thing he wanted to do was play with Michael Stipe, the REM singer with whom he'd reportedly developed a close friendship." Returning to Seattle last month, Cobain was soon taking drugs with such desperate abandon that Nirvana's management urged him to join a 12-step drug rehabilitation program. Love, who, contrary to rumors, says she and Cobain hadn't broken up and that she had remained willing to, as she put it, die for him, said that at one drug-ravaged point, quote, "I told him, you've got to be a good daddy. We've got to be good parents." Cobain did enter drug rehab for several days, but the treatment didn't take. Last Monday, taking drugs again, he disappeared, and Love hired a private detective to try to find him, unsuccessfully as it turned out. When Cobain's body was discovered on Friday morning in a house he owned and had previously lived in, Love went to the scene. She already knew about the shotgun he had bought. She now feels that Cobain had been planning to take his own life for a considerable time. Judging by the evidence at the scene, Love says, Cobain had first written a suicide note to her, which said, in part, "It's not fun for me anymore. I can't live this life." Then, Love says, he apparently drew a chair up to a window looking out on Puget Sound, sat down, took some more drugs, picked up his shotgun, and using his thumb, it seems, shot himself in the head. The physical damage was so severe that his body could only be identified by fingerprints. Love says she took a thatch of his blonde hair home and carefully washed it, remembering how much Cobain had always hated washing his hair. Rather chillingly, Love says that 3 of Cobain's uncles had also committed suicide. She calls it the Cobain curse. Still reeling from her husband's death when we spoke to her, Love said she was at home with friends, wearing a pair of Cobain's jeans and socks, and trying, she said, to come to grips with the fact that she would never hold his hand again, and that their baby daughter would now never know her father. Love said that Cobain, crazy on drugs, drove his friends away with his erratic behavior. Now, inevitably, they're wondering whether things might have been different if someone had been with him in his final hours. Says Love, everyone who feels guilty, raise your hand. With Nirvana, Kurt Cobain became an icon of the great grunge music hype he so mistrusted. However, judging by the 4 powerful albums he made with that band, his heartbroken lyrical art and his passionate guitar work and vocals would likely have made him a rock and roll sensation in any era. On Friday afternoon in New York City, Rolling Stone magazine. Meanwhile, Tabitha Soren was in Seattle on Friday and filed this report from the streets of Kurt Cobain's adopted hometown.
I'm here at the King County Medical Examiner's office in Seattle, where the body of Nirvana's Kurt Cobain is being autopsied. Cobain apparently took his own life by putting a shotgun in his mouth and pulling the trigger. His body was identified through fingerprints, and results of the autopsy may be released as early as Monday. This is the Seattle house where Kurt Cobain had lived until a few months ago with his wife Courtney Love and his daughter Frances Bean. It is also the house where he took his life. Cobain reportedly still owned the house in this affluent Madrona Park neighborhood. So tell me what you're doing here today.
Just out here paying my respects, and it's kind of like a little tribute to be out here by his house.
Nirvana's like the only music I listen to nowadays. Them and Spring Trees, but that's about it. I mean, for some people like me, it's gonna suck.
What did you feel when you heard the news on the radio?
I wanted to cry, and then I got really mad, really ticked.
Here's a sampling of reaction from listeners to KNDD Radio.
Is it true that Nirvana's lead singer killed himself?
That is true, yes.
Hi, can I request Blue by Nirvana?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye. A lot of the younger kids that are calling, I don't think have ever experienced anything, and they're young. I mean, we're talking 12, 11, 12, 13. Have never experienced anything like this before, even though there's violence and death in the papers every day. Somebody like Kurt Cobain going, it doesn't compute.
Linda's is a Seattle bar owned by Sub Pop, the record label where Nirvana got their start. It is also one of the last bars at which Kurt Cobain was seen just last week. On April 4th, Kurt Cobain's mother, Wendy O'Connor, filed a missing persons report on her son because he reportedly fled a quote-unquote facility. She did not clarify whether that was a drug treatment center or not, but that's what people are speculating. She was worried about Kurt because he had a shotgun in his possession, and she considered him suicidal. Meanwhile, Friday night in Los Angeles, the city's top alternative rock radio station, KROQ, turned its weekly dance party at the Palace into a Nirvana tribute.
He was a genius, and everybody's here to pay their respects, and I'm sure everybody is real upset about it, and it's a shock. We can't understand, we can't believe that it happened. It's unbelievable. And this is one man that will not be forgotten.
He had a lot to live for, obviously a brilliant musical career and a wife and a child and just very young. And if anything can be learned from this, I would think it would be that suicide is not a solution. Drugs, suicide, not the answer, not a way out. So I would hope that a lot of young people that were inspired and are inspired by Nirvana's music would not get the message that this is a good thing to do, because certainly it's not.
Kurt Cobain's mother, Wendy O'Connor, said on Friday that her son had been missing for 6 days and that the last time she had spoken with him, she told him not to join the stupid club of rock stars who had died untimely deaths. It's obviously very difficult for most people to understand why someone who had had all his dreams come true could still be in such incredible pain.
Tabitha Soren in Seattle, where, by the way, a candlelight memorial vigil for Kurt Cobain will be held at 5 p.m. on Sunday at the Seattle Center Flag Plaza. Back in New York City on Friday, we went out on the streets and got these reactions to the death of Kurt Cobain.
I'm really surprised. I'm really shocked. I didn't really expect it. I mean, you always expect these kind of things from people like Kurt Cobain, who seem to be a little bit on the edge, but it really is, I really didn't expect it. It really comes as a shock to me.
I mean, it really sucks because, you know, he's got a little baby. You know, that's about, I mean, yeah, he's dead. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, but I really feel for his kid more than anything else.
I'm very surprised. I mean, from what I know, he's very young, very talented. I mean, I'm shocked. He could have gone so much more places with his talent. I mean, he had great music, great talent. I'm just very shocked.
He just didn't care what other people said. And I thought some of his attitude was good because, you know, some people just care what everybody thinks and they try to they don't make music for themselves, they make it to please other people and they should make it for themselves, and he was like that.
I loved his music. I mean, his music actually meant stuff.
Some reactions in New York City on Friday to the death of Kurt Cobain. By the way, if you know somebody who suffers from depression and who might be in the sort of emotional hole Cobain found himself in, don't let that person throw his or her life away. Help is available through your local suicide hotline or the National Suicide Hotline run by Boys Town. And this is the toll-free number, 1-800-448-3000. We'll be back in a moment with more of the vividly gifted Kurt Cobain, his life, his music, and his terrible death. Don't go away. Welcome back to a sad